What is happening, y'all? Cowboy here, and welcome back to another How-To Wilds guide, and today we are taking a look at the Sword and Shield. Now, the Sword and Shield is a very beginner-friendly weapon. There's not any gauges or anything you need to worry about, and it's also one of the only weapons in the game that has access to both slashing as well as blunt damage types. It's also very beginner-friendly in the sense that we can use items without actually having to sheath our weapon, but it commonly gets overlooked because of its small size. But it's important to remember it's not about the size of the weapon, it's about how you use it. So let's jump in and talk about this fantastic weapon. Now, there are two basic combos we're going to be covering with the Sword and Shield. We have our Y, which is our chop combo. And while that one doesn't do all that much damage, what it's better known for is its mobility. Right now, I'm just holding the left stick in various directions while I'm pressing Y, and you can notice I'm practically just dancing around here. A lot of mobility on this, and it's very useful for being able to move around the monster and making sure you are constantly hitting it while avoiding its attacks. Now, besides that, if we hit B, we have the lateral slash combo. So we go 1, 2, 3, and that's actually going to deal more damage than the Y combo, and we can also chain it into some other things, like the Reaper slash, which is quite strong. However, both of these combos now have access to end in something known as the charged chop. And the charged chop you can do just by holding Y and B, but you always want to do a charged chop after finishing a combo. So what I mean by this is 1, 2, 3, 4, then go for the charged chop, and you'll notice that the blade was glowing and it was empowered. And 1, 2, 3, and then we do the charged chop. Basically, if you're hitting Y or triangle, you're going to want 4 hits before a charged chop. If you're hitting B, you're going to want 3 hits before a charged chop. Now, if you use B in a direction, you'll be smacking with your shield instead. And the same charged chop rules also apply. After 3 hits, we get the empowered version of it, which is quite strong. Now, an important thing to keep in mind with Sword and Shield is this is a weapon that actually works pretty well as either physical or elemental. However, if you decide to play elemental Sword and Shield, keep in mind that the damage isn't going to come from your shield, it's coming purely from your sword. So doing attacks like this or the falling bash, which we'll cover in a little bit, are not going to be applying that elemental or that status if you're doing a status build. That's purely going to come from your blade. And this is something important to remember when you decide whether you're going for like a lateral slash combo or if you're trying to get the shield attack, or when you're deciding what jump attack to do. So talking about the jump attacks, with the Sword and Shield, we have a couple of attacks we can do from a leap. Now, to do a leap, if you're in focus mode, you just hit back and B, and that'll prime you on up to then leap. If you're not in focus mode, you just hit back and B after an attack, or alternatively, you can hit back and B out of a block. The idea is just you need to be in a locked position briefly to hit back and B. And when you go ahead and do that, there are a couple of different options that are going to open up to you. We will use this wonderful herd we have right here as our test dummies. But jumping up, I can hit B for a falling bash, doing a little bit of a Superman punch. If I was to hit Y, I'll do the falling slash. And if I was to hit Y and B together, I will do the plunging thrust, which is a multi-hit. And which of these you go for really just kind of depends what you're in the mood for. If you're trying to get a mount, the just falling slash actually works pretty well. Plunging thrust also does a decent job at getting mounts. If you're trying to get just raw damage in, falling bash is generally going to be the go-to choice. But this also goes back to the discussion about elemental damage versus physical. If we're playing physical Sword and Shield, falling bash all day. But if you're playing elemental, you might go for falling bash to get a KO, but you're not going to be getting elemental damage with those shield hits, so that's something to keep in mind. Now, besides that, our big damage combo with the Sword and Shield is something that's known as Perfect Rush. This is also done from a backstep, but instead of letting go of B, we're going to tap Y. And we're going to go into this combo where we go through a 3-hit combo and then launch off the monster, at which point we'll be able to come down with those 3 aerial options that we had previously. And this is a timed combo. What I mean by this, so is if you go into this and you're just pressing Y and you're just, mashing Y and going through it, you're not going to get very good damage. You want to time the presses instead. So to go through this and kind of talk about the timing a little bit. Boom, 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 boom. You just want to slow it down a little bit, and right after you get that charge flash, that's when you're going to want to hit Y and go into the next attack, and you'll see a significant increase in terms of the damage capability of your Perfect Rush. Besides that, the only other thing I think I really want to talk about, while you're holding block, if you press Y, you have sliding sweep, which is just a nice little mobility move. And then when we do our vital stabs, we can also do the vital stabs from the air. So if you get a weak point that's high up, you can still leap up off of a backstep jump and end up tagging the monster and get that vital stab point that's on its back or whatever the case is. From our vital stab, we actually get access to 2 moves. We can either just rip the blade through the monster dealing damage, or we can do kind of like a falling bash variation. Both attacks do very good damage. What it's ultimately going to come down to is if you can land the punch coming back down if you hit B. If you're going to hit the punch on the downswing, it's usually going to be worth it to use B to break the wounds. Otherwise, I think you're going to get more value just hitting Y or triangle to break those wounds. Now, in terms of playstyle for Sword and Shield, it's very versatile, and you can weave a lot of these things together. So I could go like Y, Y, B, 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 Y and B charge into the rising slash, and then I could repeat that combo and make it go infinite. Your Y and B moves are very versatile in terms of you weaving those into each other. So keep that in mind. You know, the type of slash you're doing, it's really just going to depend on the situation. If you have a bigger window and you can stand still, going for B is going to get more damage. But if you've got to move, work those Y moves in. You have tons of mobility with them. You're going to get that damage in. Always try to end off with Y and B. Anytime you're doing the B combo, ending with Y and B for Spinning Reaper is just free damage you can pepper into that combo. And then keep in mind, anytime we go through either 4 Ys or 3 Bs, try to work in that charge chop, even if it's after the Spinning Reaper, because it does very good damage. And at least from what I've seen so far, it's probably one of the best attacks in the game in terms of making wounds. So let's go back on over to the hub and we'll get a hunt started up. But yeah, pretty simple weapon, you know. You have Y and B. B can also do the blunt damage. Y does our slashing damage. B can slash if you're not moving. In terms of using the perfect rush, I typically will utilize that on a knockdown. So if somebody hits the ground, that's when I'm going to go for perfect rush. If you're trying to play like super optimal damage, you know, speedrunners, you'll see people that they just do perfect rush over and over and over and over again. I wouldn't worry that much about it, to be honest, especially if you're learning the weapon. Get used to working in your Y and B combos together. Look for opportunities to jump back. If maybe a monster attack's coming, hop back and then hop in to hit the monster, jump up, get a falling bash. And when you eventually get the knockdown, that's when we're going to go for our perfect rush. Make sure we can capitalize on it, you know. And actually, one thing I didn't cover from the perfect rush, instead of the final attack of it, which will launch you in the air, alternatively, you could go into a charge chop now. Or you could go into the Reaping Slash, and then I believe into a Charge Chop off of that as well. So there's a lot of different options. There's a lot of flexibility with this weapon in terms of just flowing through the various combos it has available. It's also a very good weapon for getting mounts. I think it's second only to the Inset Glaive in terms of its aerial takedown capability, just because you have those constant hops where you're getting on top of the monster. But either way, let's jump in and get to him. So we're going to start with the dismount attack. Oh, I missed it. We're going to jump back and I'm going to show you the plunge. We're going to get an early mount here. There we go. We already got it. I like hopping back and forth when I get the mount. It seems to avoid a lot of the shenanigans the monster wants to engage in, like he's doing right now. All right, we got the opening. Going to hit that head, knock it down. I'm going to go for the perfect rush while he's on the ground. From that out, hit the falling bash. We also have perfect guards with the sword and shield. It's not all that impactful. You just get this little slash. I mean, it does good damage, 31, but it's not flashy or anything like in other weapons. And we also have a perfect clash that we can do, or a guard clash we can do. You can see that's dragging it through the monster. By comparison, if I hit B, I punch up, and then I'm going to punch down. can see I can get that punch from it as well. So usually B is going to get more value. As long as you can hit that attack on the downswing, you're going to get more value out of hitting B to break the wound. Let that one go a little bit too early. Another power clash. Stab him up a bit. Got another mount. Now notice that I'm hopping back and forth and I'm using the right bumper to do the draw finishers to make those wounds very, very quickly. Very easy way to get those wounds on the monster because we're evading while he's doing his typical shenanigans. He's trying to pull us off. The monster's about to run. I might... No! Oh, so right there, I was trying to finish the combo a little bit early just to try and get him down. So I skipped a step. That's one thing you can do. Each of those, it's 3 separate timed presses. So if something is trying to run away from you, and you're like, wait, if I you know, I'm just a half a second sooner I can get it out, advance through your combo a little bit quicker. Don't be afraid to cut the combo short to make sure that you're getting those hits in that you want. And down goes the Chata. But yeah, very, very fun weapon. As I mentioned, very versatile in terms of, you know, weaving in your bashes, weaving in the sword. I really like how one of the big things they changed now is out of this. I mean, we have so many things that are putting us up in the air. And then, you know, if it's a big monster, you can plunging thrust. If you're going for the KO, the falling bash. I don't really use the regular slash that much, this one. Just in terms of damage potential, that is going to be probably the weakest attack because it usually hits for a flat amount. Whereas if you're against something that has any kind of size at all, plunging thrust will always hit harder. And falling bash will pretty much always hit harder than that, unless you're getting like a ton of plunges. But still, there's a lot of versatility in terms of, you know, do you want to slash? Do you want to bash? Are you jumping? What are you going for? It's just a very beginner-friendly weapon, and it's a lot of fun to play too. You're very mobile. We have a very nice high damage combo, you know, elemental and physical capable, and just solid all around. So we're gonna wrap this one up here. Up next, the current plan is I'm going to be doing Insect Glaive. After that, I'll be doing Hammer, and then Hunting Horn, and then from there, Lance, Gun Lance, and lastly, I'm going to try to get the bow guns out as well. But I think I'll have time to get through all of them, because it's only Friday night right now, and we still have 3 days left of the beta. So thanks for coming on by, and I'll catch y'all soon with more.